Welcome to the People, Passion, and Purpose podcast, where you will hear from creative small business owners in the trenches every single day, talking story, talking lessons, talking failures, talking truth. I'm your host, Nina L. Kovner. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the podcast. Demry-Sanders, hairdresser, session stylist, and a passionate activist. Dre, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's so cool. Dre and I connected about a month or so ago on Instagram and started a discussion about women of color, hair, and the professional beauty industry. And Dre, I was so inspired by that conversation and listening to your story that I just really wanted to bring you on the podcast and be able to share that and inspire and empower and educate our listeners. So thank you, Dre. Thank you so much for being here.
Me, I appreciate it.
So we talked a lot about passion when we chatted. What does passion mean to you?
Passion is something that you feel in your heart. It's something you can't ignore. It's kind of like this fire in the pit of your soul that just nothing will take it out. Nothing, no water, no discrimination, no, judgment can put that fire out. That's what passion is for me.
I love that. How has passion driven you through your career and your experience?
I've always had this passion to do hair. I grew up in my aunt's hair salon, and I would just sit in there for hours. And for me, when I grew up to figure out what my career was going to be, hair wasn't something that my family encouraged because back then it wasn't a career. It wasn't as known as it is now. Like now hairstylists are just as known as the singers that they style,
Yes.
It was just all we knew about was salon hairstyling. So I went to college because I was encouraged by my family. And ideally, my mind was going to say that I should do both. But my experience in college was hard, so I couldn't juggle both. I knew that hair was something that stuck with me. It was how I made money in college, Coming out of college is also something that I've always done for my family. So it was something that just stuck with me. I could never let it go. So, yeah.
I love that. So on your website, I saw something that really spoke to my heart in your bio. And it says, I'm going to quote this: "You are admired for openly displaying your vulnerability through your own experience." Can you share with us what that means?
Yeah. I, just like everyone else, I have a very unique experience. And I think that the small audience that I have is connected to that experience. I am a Black woman, and that is a very special experience, especially navigating this world nowadays. And for me, it's important for me to share my experiences, not only for people to relate, other Black women to relate to me, but for other people who are outside of the Black woman experience to kind of get an idea of what we go through on a daily basis. I also suffer from mental illness, and I'm very vocal about that because it's very important to me. As I'm learning more about what that looks like for me, I want to make sure people see that it's not a process that goes from good to bad. It's a durational process. I'm always going to be working on it. I have very, very bad days, and then I have very, very great days. And I think that is important for me to show people both. I think a lot of my depression also comes from seeing people on social media and only I see their happy days. I want to see when they're in the mud, when they're in the dirt. And so I can relate to them and say, you know what, they've been there too. I'm going to make it out of this because I can also see their great days too. And that's important for me as well. So for me, being vulnerable, it's so important to be able to connect to people. That's the only way I feel like I can connect to people is to show them and be transparent with my own experience.
Wow. And that's something that you and I share in common, and we talk a lot about at Passion Squared is mental health and wellness. And you really frame that in a beautiful way. And I honor that. Thank you. Thank you for your courage because the good days, we all see those, but that expectation, that unrealistic expectation of that everything's so shiny, is a disservice. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience with that. So let's talk about hairstyles and cultural appropriation.
Hey.
I am keenly aware of my privilege of wearing box braids and not being discriminated against for wearing them. That's not the same for women of color. Can you share your experience with discrimination, being discriminated against when it comes to particular hairstyles?
I guess for me, I live my experience through my clientele. I feel like I've always been in a pretty creative industry from the start. I went to school for psychology, but I also went to school at a Black college. So creativity was the thing that we were supposed to be about. You know, if you weren't creative, then you weren't seen. And so I've had the opportunity to try a lot of things. I also was raised by an only parent, and my mother was very intentional about letting me express myself. And so at an early age, I was doing crazy things with my hair by myself. And I feel like that has put me in a place to always be comfortable and almost oblivious to any other judgment until I became a hairstylist and I got into the salon, and I'm having conversations with my clients who are in the corporate world and corporate settings. And, you know, I'm a hair braider by just naturally. I'm a hair braider. I've always braided hair. My mom always tells a story how I started braiding hair at the age of 3. So I've been braiding forever, and braids have not always been a acceptable hairstyle for women to wear. And I find now that whenever I have a conversation with my clients about potentially them wanting to wear braids or thinking about the idea of wearing braids, the conversation of how am I going to explain this to the people at my job, or how am I going to look when I go into an interview tomorrow with these braids, or, you know, just how am I going to dodge the people who are just want to put their hands in my hair? You know, how am I going to deal with that? How am I going to have these hard conversations that I really don't want to have, because I really want people to see me as the talented person I am, as the person who can work and have these skills without seeing my hair. It's always like a Black woman's hair is something that's always political, and sometimes it's not that. Sometimes we just want to look beautiful and connect to our own roots. And we are not really given space to do that. But people who are not of color have the space to do that freely. And so this became something that I became aware of while I was in school. While I was in cosmetology school, and furthermore, when I got into behind the chair. And I am learning, I feel like I'm chosen almost because of my experience of always being confident in whatever I'm wearing. I've been chosen to kind of encourage people to do the same. But it's a hard thing to do. Not everyone is built to address those hard questions. Not everyone is built to say, please don't touch my hair. You know, some people get their space invaded and they just have to deal with it. And that can become a very traumatic experience. Just in being aware of your space. Black women are always aware of the space that they take up, and how they're being perceived by other people, because that is how we've been generationally surviving, is to kind of navigate these spaces and be quiet or be censored. We're always being censored to survive. And it's almost triggering to see that that's not the case for people of color that get to wear these styles. So yeah, it's a very dense and heavy kind of situation to be in, to want to be able to express yourself freely without being, you know, censored, but also wanting to make a living, wanting to live a peaceful life. You almost have to sacrifice a part of you to live life in peace.
And I believe that you are chosen. You definitely are, because as you said, a role that you are taking on with your clients is helping empower them to wear these styles, even with all of that discrimination and adversity and unfairness and all the things that you said, which leads me to kind of my next question. next thing I want to talk about is when we were talking, you said to me, we just want our stories to be heard and we want the same opportunities. And we were speaking really to the professional beauty industry. And you are most definitely not the first person I've had this conversation with. We've actually had this conversation on the podcast, but I've been in the beauty industry 30 years. This conversation's been going on for decades. And yet here we are in 2018 having the same fucking conversation. Yeah. So when you said that to me, we want our stories to be heard, we want the same opportunities. What did you mean by that?
I'll tell a story, a very short story. I recently got the opportunity to do a really cool Target event. And I was ecstatic about it. Like, woohoo, yay, finally, I'm in Minnesota. That's the headquarters. I finally got my foot in the door to work with Target, you know? And then I got there and I was assigned all the textured hair. And it's like, you only get an opportunity to work in these bigger platforms and these bigger, you know, corporate events when the models have curly hair, or some kind of texture in their hair. It's almost like, we don't really trust her with anything else but that. And the reality is I'm amazing with any kind of hair. I can draw something on a bald head and make it creative. I can make anything from nothing, you know, but it's not seen. I'm not given that opportunity to showcase that because I'm only needed for textured hair, you know? And for me, I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm going to just really rock this out and showcase that I can do this. And hopefully I get the opportunity to showcase that I can do everything. But I have to wait for that opportunity to come to me. Whereas someone who is not of color can get these opportunities without it being a second thought. They don't assign specific models to that kind of person. They just get to do whatever they can do. I don't get that opportunity to showcase that. And that happens to me a lot. I get, you know, cornered as a braider or someone who knows how to work with curly hair. And while that is true, and that is pretty much what I do on a regular basis, I work with a lot of straight hair. And the reality of it is also that textured hair in the next couple of years is going to be on top of everyone's head.
Right.
If you cannot work with a curl or a wave in someone's hair, you're going to be out of a job really soon. And so it's almost like I'm patiently waiting for that to happen because then I will have jobs all the time. But right now I don't. I rarely frequently have my freelance jobs because there are not models of color being used. And when there are models of color being used, most of the times, and I'm always into fashion. That's my thing. I love Fashion Week wherever it is. But you look at those runways and you see the models of color and they either have curly hair like this wig I have on right now, or they have a bald head. There are no 4C, and that's, very textured, coily hair, or coarse hair walking down the runway unless the designer is a person of color and understands that and has connections to hairstylists who can style that kind of hair. But on those bigger runways, it's people with long, straight hair, models of color with bald heads, or models of color with very loosely curled hair. So those opportunities are not provided for that space of people that have highly textured hair. They don't have those opportunities as well. And so I'm not giving those opportunities to do their hair. So it's kind of like our voice is only heard and opportunities are only given when needed, when necessary, not because we're talented, not because we're beautiful, not because we're skilled, but because our talent is needed right now.
How do we change that?
You gotta get uncomfortable. I think for the industry has to open up and make connections with people who don't have big platforms that are always working with this kind of, this situation. We've got to have these kind of conversations. Like for us to be talking right now is really amazing to me because I really did not think that you would respond the way you did. Usually when I am calling someone out for something, they take offense and they shut down. but instead you were open and you wanted to give me a platform to speak my voice. That is a start. We have experiences that need to be heard, because without you hearing our experience, you don't know what we're going through. You don't know that I don't have the opportunities, because on the outside, on my Instagram, it looks like I'm doing just fine, but I am struggling. I don't have the opportunities that I could have. If I were white, or if I were, just not the person I am. And that sucks. We need to provide platforms for these people who do have these skills to showcase it to the world.
Dre, oh my gosh, I hear you on that. Let's get a little more specific. If you were speaking to all the editors of all the professional beauty trade magazines right at this moment, and you speak about opportunity, what would you want to say to them?
Just do your research outside of your circles. You should surround yourself with people that you don't know. If you're sitting at a table and everyone looks like you're not doing your job correctly. If you're sitting at a table and it's a rainbow of people, then you are on the right direction. If you're giving opportunities to people that you don't know, then you're in the right direction. But if you're giving opportunities to people that you're used to working with, then you're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to grow as an industry. We're not going to grow as a business. There's a term called Sankofa, and basically it means the people who have gotten further along in life turn back around and bring someone down below with you up. And that's basically what needs to happen, because everyone that has the skills to do everything are sitting down in here and we're all talking to each other, just waiting for someone to come and pick us up and give us these larger platforms so we can educate people about the things that we go through, educate people about the things that we know, the skills that we know, and the trades that we know.
Wow. Can you share that term one more time?
It's called Sankofa.
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 That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That is beautiful. And I was going to ask you your favorite quote, but that's it to me. Like that. Yeah, what a beautiful, beautiful message of lifting up those around us and reaching out that hand. Yep. And I love what you said. If everyone at the table looks like you're at the wrong fucking table.
Yeah, you're not doing it right.
You're not doing it right. No. Wow, there's so much we can all learn from that.
And can I add one more thing to that?
Yes, of course.
I just want to say also, like, you have to be open because if you're at that table and everyone doesn't look like you, there are going to be challenging things that they're going to say to you. There are going to be things you're going to be uncomfortable with, but give them a chance because they know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. Just kind of give them their faith that they can do it. Because they can.
I love that. Just listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just listen. Dre, where can we find you? Online, offline? Where do we find you?
I'm pretty much everything is Dre on hair. So on Instagram is at Dre_on_hair. My website is www.dreonhair.com. Dre Demry-Sanders on Facebook. I think that's all the social medias that I have. But reach out to me. I love talking to people. I love meeting new people. Yeah, let's do this.
Dre, thank you so much for your courage, for your kindness, for your passion, and for your voice. I'm so incredibly grateful to be connected with you and help share a little bit about your story. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I love it. I love this. We're on a great start.
We sure are. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. To learn more about Passion Squared, you can visit us at passionsquared.net. You can find us on the gram and on Facebook at Passion Squared, and be sure to subscribe and share with your friends. We're so grateful. Thank you so much for joining us. Have an awesome day, guys. Love you.